Everybody needs an advocate.
Because I'm not there 24/7.
Families that have hemophilia mature faster.
I've been feeling a lot of anxiety lately.
I'm so tired of being strong.
To understand how far we've come helps you appreciate where we are now.
No is just no for this person. Somebody's gonna say yes sooner or later.
And it helps you understand that there are more steps to be taken in the future.
You're the first person I've met with a bleeding disorder.
Let's fight the disease and not the people who have it.
When did you start going to camp?
I started going to camp at age 5, so year 2000.
And yeah, because you're 22 now. So you have severe hemophilia B.
I do.
No prior family history.
Nope, not at all.
You have been a member of CHOC, the Children's Hospital, for all of your life, or when did you first get involved?
Yeah, all of my life I've been a part of CHOP, and I'm actually moving from CHOP to Penn, which is the adult hospital.
Gotcha. And I remember you had told me when we talked before this that it was the best care you could have asked for.
Absolutely. Anytime that I had a bleed or thought I might have had a bleed and just been in pain, they were always very on top of things and just very speedy about recovery and everything like that. So it was very appreciated.
While you mentioned that you don't have any family history, there is a fair, growing up, there was a fair amount of medical challenges that were presented within your family. Can you give us a little insight into those?
Absolutely. So my dad has congestive heart failure, diabetes, lost mainly all of his fingers, and is an amputee of the leg right under the knee. My mom has epilepsy. They both have kidney failure. It's a long list of medical things. My brother he's HIV positive. It's just like there's a lot of medical history in my family, but we get through.
Were you aware that maybe there was for lack of maybe a better term, an abnormal amount of medical challenges in your family, or did it just seem, were you aware that maybe not everybody's family had this number of challenges going on?
I guess I never thought about it. I just realized all right, this is my family, and I'm sure other families have their share of it, but I didn't put too much thought into it.
And with your hemophilia growing up, you had mentioned to me that you were having maybe 1 to 2 bleeds a month for a lot of your life.
I was in the hospital a lot.
Yeah, what was going on there?
So my target joints are my knees and my ankle. I just didn't want to not do things. So I was out playing two-hand touch football when I probably shouldn't have been. Very rough with my friends. And my friends and family, like the males more so, and the family just wouldn't allow for me to not.
So there was a bit of a pressure to kind of fulfill this idea of masculinity or manhood in some way?
Absolutely.
And what was that? I mean, was there a point at which you had to finally say, like, I can't anymore, this is too much?
The summer of 2009, before I got into high school, I was in Center City, Philadelphia for 4th of July with one of my friends. And like I said, all my life I had that idea that you have to be tough and have this rough exterior. And growing up in the urban city, there's people that's always going to test you. And so I got into an altercation, me and my friend, with a group of guys, and what I thought was only going to be a physical altercation turned into me losing one of my best friends. At such a young age, it was really kind of hard to conceptualize being a part of that. And I think after that, I really had to reevaluate and understand that I'm not invincible, and that it's not always worth trying to fight and be the aggressor or anything like that. It's always going to be good to just kind of talk your way out of it and move on with life.
I think sharing some of the harder parts of our lives can be helpful to other people. It opens other people up. How else have you used that experience of losing a good friend in a well, shall we say, an unnecessary altercation or an unnecessarily amplified altercation? How have you used that to not only inform the way you think and interact with campers, but inform the way you interact with people in general?
Like we talked about before, there's just this stigma of false masculinity, that you just have to be this alpha, whatever. And it's just so not true. And I try to show that through who I am, because I believe that just the way I'm built, people may think that when me walking up or something like that, and then you give them the curveball of the smile and the jokes and the charisma and stuff like that. You can be whoever you truly want to be, and it doesn't matter what anybody thinks about you or what people think that you should be like.
And you're attributing some of that perspective to the heels of this incident that
Absolutely.
you just told us about, but you've also shared with me that in many ways camp kind of gave you the opportunity. You had actually said at one point, camp saved my life.
Camp did save my life. The same way I just talked about the way I give myself to the world, that's how everybody at camp presented themselves to me. So I came in with that one-track mind, and people were just so loving, and I had never gotten that much love in one place outside of maybe a family reunion or something like that. So people who didn't know me from a can of paint just came in and treated me like a rock star, and that's something that's a very unique feeling, and it's something that I'm going to carry with me for the rest of their life. And I want to try to give as many people that same feeling if I could.
Yeah, that feeling of walking into camp and being a rock star as a camper is something that I think I will never forget. And,
Absolutely.
And you take it into being a counselor and working with younger people, and the importance of feeling valued and feeling recognized and celebrated in an environment that you identify with as home or a home away from home. So let's go back to your hemophilia life specifically. So when did that pattern of 1 to 2 bleeds, frequent hospitalization, 1 to 2 bleeds a month, frequent hospitalizations, when did that begin to shift and how did that occur?
Around 18, it started to slow up, and then I got a really bad bleed in my groin. And at the time, like, there was things going weird with like my insurance, and work still wanted me to come in. And I think once all that happened at once, and I felt so helpless and I couldn't do anything, I just like really realized like I have to be on top of everything and making sure that I'm never in this position again.
And the last number of years, so that's the last, 4-ish years or so, and what has been your kind of pattern? You went from 1 to 2 bleeds a month to, how often are you having bleeds these days?
I don't really get bleeds too often. It's just if I overexert myself or just do too much. Like we talked about before, I'm a camp counselor, and sometimes I go a little above and beyond for the kids.
You don't say.
To try to make them have a good time. And sometimes I just don't think about how I should have landed or how I probably shouldn't have jumped off of the stage or whatever.
So are there any particular moments from this summer, since you're just, when did this summer finish?
I just got back home on the 20th.
Okay.
And then flew out here on the 23rd, so.
So you're still in like the post-camp hangover mode then, I think.
It's weird. I'm not sure what times or days are. It's weird.
Any particular story or interaction from this summer that's stuck with you or stands out as a highlight?
I think this year, so I had the opportunity to work with the youngest girls, and they're 6 through 8. And one of my campers is the camp director's daughter. And at the end of the week, she comes to me and my staff, and she's like, I just really want to thank you guys because we have a talent show at the end of the week, and she was willing to express herself. And according to Jackie, like, that's not who she knows as her daughter. Like, Maya is a very quiet girl. She's to herself, and the fact that she was up there doing her own act kind of showed the love that we gave to her, that she was able to express to the rest of camp. And I felt very appreciative that we had the opportunity to even work with Maya. And then on top of that, I thought it was really cool that that Jackie came out and gave us the thanks and gave us the appreciation and the recognition.
I want to talk a little bit more about home life growing up before we bring Cheyenne into the conversation as well. You had mentioned to me that at times when you were quite young, you kind of had to almost learn how to be a dad in some ways. Can you extrapolate on that a little bit?
Yes. So when I was 8 years old, me and my sister are 10 years apart. So when I was 8 years old, she had her first child, and her father just wasn't there. The child's father wasn't there. The child's father was never there. My parents being out at work and also dealing with their own medical illnesses and things like that, and then my sister trying to also provide for her child, I kind of had to step up and kind of understand what it was like to care for her and nurture her and show her that even though the male role model that's supposed to be here isn't here, you still have great male role models in your life.
What's your relationship like with your niece today?
Oh, she's my pride and joy. She's older now.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah. She's so much older. It's crazy. They live in Baltimore, and my sister will like FaceTime me, and she's literally a splitting image of my sister, like same height and everything. And I'm like, who is this other grown woman walking through your house?
Were there times at all growing up where these challenges and the responsibilities that fell on you led you to feel angry or frustrated with the world in any way?
Once I was old enough to really understand that, like, no matter the cards I'm dealt right now, there's always somebody whose situation is, I don't want to say worse, but different, in a more intense fashion. I just had to like humble myself and be like, all right, it doesn't matter if I have to babysit right now because I love this person. Or it doesn't matter if my mom is sick and I'm the one that has to take care of her because I wouldn't want anybody else kind of doing it. Like, I know that I'm going to give her the best care and so on and so forth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like the sense of duty or responsibility kind of overrides whatever personal or selfish feelings might be going on.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. And give us a sense of what are you doing, so now post-camp in the fall, are you working, are you going to school? Give us a little sense of what's ahead for you.
So right now I'm a home health aide, and I take care of my father, who I told you guys a little bit about earlier. But I think in the future I want to own my own home health agency, specializing in children that have chronic illnesses, such as the ones that we serve at the camp that I work at, because I think it's really cool that we have the camp setting. And then we have like a hospital outreach program where they go into the hospitals, but I want to be able to control the staff and the people that are caring for the kids while they're at home and see them in their element and bring life to the home setting.
That's an awesome goal. So you are 16.
Yes.
And were only diagnosed last year with von Willebrand disease.
Yes, I was.
Can you give us a little, give us the story of how did you wind up getting diagnosed?
Well, probably from the time that I was 10 months old, I had so many nosebleeds. And I'm from a very small town, Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and I went to every ear, nose, and throat doctor, and their automatic reaction was cauterization. And a year ago, I was to the point where we said, like, okay, this is not okay. I've had my nose cauterized 11 times. And so then I went to Hershey Medical Center, and that's when I was diagnosed.
What kind of led to to your going to Hershey and to the diagnosis? At what point did you think, because 11 is a lot, but
Right.
after the 8th, I'm sure it was
Right.
like, oh my god. So what finally was the trigger that led to that discovery?
Well, we actually went to another hospital, and they just kind of said, yeah, your anatomy is messed up. And we said, okay, well, what are we going to do from that point on? And I actually have cousins that have von Willebrand's disease, and so we kind of guessed that, but so many doctors in my area were too ignorant to look into that. So at that point, that's when we went to Hershey.
So growing up, before you were diagnosed, because it does on average, unfortunately, take quite a long time for most people with von Willebrand disease to be diagnosed. 12, 13, 14 years is unfortunately average. And often it comes with a certain amount of a sigh of relief for people because it answers like some of the mystery of like, why am I getting these frequent nosebleeds? Why do I bruise more easily? Why does it stick around for forever? Did it connect dots for you when you finally got your diagnosis? Oh, that's what that thing was about.
I really just had nosebleeds, and then I was bruising easily. I'm a dancer, so I'm just constantly getting bruises. People are like, oh, you have a huge bruise on your leg. I'm like, yeah, I know, I have a bleeding disorder. And they're like, oh, okay.
Well, that's good. At least they're accepting of it. It's a good opportunity, too. You can do, well, actually, von Willebrand disease means, and you do go into the whole educational
that's
spiel.
when I go into the whole part where I'm like, oh, yeah, I compete in pageants, and my pageant platform is Bows for Blood, and it's just an advocacy program that I created, and it's based on advocating for people with bleeding disorders.
Yeah, so let's rewind the tape a little bit. You mentioned being a dancer, so obviously you have a certain amount of performance and physical background, but pageantry is something quite specific. When did you start? How did you get into it? I know nothing about it, really, so educate me.
From like a young age, I knew I wanted to do pageants. I like pranced around the house in high heels and a tiara, and I was like, I'm going to be the next Miss USA. And then when I was 12, I was introduced to the NAM organization. It stands for National American Miss. And that I went into that program, and then I competed when I was 12. And then from there, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And then that's when I gained a platform. And I first had a platform before I was diagnosed with von Willebrand's disease. It was a diversity and inclusion platform that's so important, but once I was diagnosed, I just don't think that it should have taken that long. I feel that if doctors were more aware of it, it would not have taken as long, so that's when I knew I wanted to advocate for that.
Yeah, they say as many as 1 in 100 people have a bleeding disorder, but as many as 9 out of 10 aren't diagnosed.
Right.
So we certainly have a lot of work to do when it comes to making sure that our level of awareness and education is up generally, but also specifically within the medical world, in the clinical setting, so that we're not necessarily getting our nose cauterized 11 times before someone thinks maybe we should test for a bleeding disorder. So it's good that you've recognized. I was impressed when we talked on the phone how it seems as though you went into the pageant world very cognizant of the platform, you've already referenced it here, the platform that it would potentially provide you to operate from. When did you first realize, oh, if this is something that I am successful with, there's an added benefit to being successful. I can point a spotlight at something. When did that come into your thinking?
Once I got older, I knew I could make a difference within like within my peers in society with something that I am passionate about.
And when you started Bows for Blood in particular, can you, frankly, I don't really know much about like what that means, like even to
Right.
have like a pageantry platform. What does it look like? What does a Bows for Blood thing look like?
Well, I work with Eastern PA Hemophilia chapter, and I really work with a lot of those events, and it's so much fun meeting everyone from the chapter. And then I also advocate, just in my community, and I mean, it's as small as I can go to watching one of my friends compete in a pageant and just talk to them about my platform. So I'm advocating really wherever I go, and then in school as well.
And when does what's the competition calendar look like for the pageant world?
Well, I'm looking at competing in December for Miss PA USA teen, and then maybe, we'll see where that goes, and then if not, maybe competing again in March for, I was first runner-up this past year at Miss Pennsylvania Teen United States, so, work a little harder, and maybe that will happen in the spring, but I'm looking forward to that.
Let's stay on that for a second, because obviously, like, that's incredible. Like, that means you did awesome. What was that moment like when you received an amazing recognition of first runner-up, but also had to kind of contend with the party that was like, oh man?
Right.
What was that moment for you like?
I'm an emotional person to begin with, so I was like, my mom and grandma know about this. I was like, I was so tired by the end of pageant weekend. I was like, I'm just ready to be done. I'm ready, like, whatever happens, and it is for the best. I'm like, I really just want to go eat. Like, I was looking forward to go to the Cheesecake Factory. I was like, I just really want some food. After that, I was like, okay, it is upsetting, and I worked hard, but my choreographer, he said, each pageant you go through, whether you win or not, you're taking something away from that, and each pageant is building up to your time, and it just wasn't my time, and it wasn't meant to be, but it was meant to be for cheesecake, so I mean,
That's right, yeah.
That's right.
You did go to the Cheesecake Factory
Yes,
afterwards.
I did.
Good.
We had like 3 slices, we all shared, it was great.
That's the moral of the story is whatever the outcome, there's always a Cheesecake Factory near you.
Yes.
What have been some of the interactions you've had with younger girls in particular who, are probably in a similar position that you were when you were 7, 8, 9, they see you and they look up to you and then they say, oh, I want to get involved with the glitz and glam and the heels and all that. What have some of those interactions been like?
I dance, and I am teaching little girls this year I'm teaching their dance classes, and so we had a princess camp, and they all dressed like princesses, and then I brought my crown in and they tried it on. But the one part is I tell them, I think the most important thing for them to do is find something they love and they're passionate about, and to follow their dreams and to make a difference in society.
So what, last question for now, when going forward this fall, like I was asking Eli about, what lies ahead for you this fall as you get back to school? What else is going on?
Well, this fall I start school is pretty much as soon as I get back from Chicago, and then I'm looking at doing some internships, maybe at a local politician's office, or shadowing some real estate developers in the area. That is a field that I want to go into after I graduate, and focusing on school. I have a few more years left, so I'm ready to get that done and over with. And then I have dance and pageants, of course.
So, Jimmy, you live with sickle cell disease.
Correct.
Before we get into your story, can you just give us some overview as to what is sickle cell disease?
So basically, sickle cell disease is a disorder of the red blood cells. Everyone has circular red blood cells, but with sickle cell, we have a sickled cell shaped red blood cells. And what happens is when blood tries to flow through the veins and deliver oxygen to the vital organs, it can't, because it's stuck in the veins and it's getting clumpy and sticky. So it has this cascading effect on the rest of the organs. The heart, you're vulnerable to heart attacks, you're vulnerable to strokes, your tissues are damaged, So basically everything is very, very vulnerable when you have sickle cell.
And for you, what does that look like on and we'll talk about today, and then we'll get into some of your backstory, but these days, what does that look like for you week to week, month to month? How often are you experiencing, those crises, so to speak, where those sickled cells are adhering to each other and causing these blocks? How often is that occurring for you?
It's a daily thing, so with the pain, the daily pain, because the blood cells are blocked, and they cause pain to the joints, the hips. Actually, I'm now going through something called avascular necrosis bilateral.
What is that?
So basically, it's a disorder from sickle cell where the red blood cells get clogged and they start affecting the tissue in the hip. So literally you're walking around with pain nonstop. So that involves a lot of pain medication. And with the opioid crisis now, it's kind of hard to find a good doctor that wants to take care of you. So it's quite difficult.
So let's go back. Your family, there's a bit of a history of the sickle cell trait in your family, correct?
Yep, mom and dad had the trait.
And they actually have a pretty fantastic story, in my opinion, of what they did when they found out about you. Can you tell that story?
Absolutely. Back there in Nigeria, they didn't have the test that you could see if your child was going to have sickle cell. My parents were fortunate enough to come to the States, and then my mom came, and they did the test, and they found out I was going to have sickle cell. My mom, being a woman of faith, she decided to, I'm going to have this. I'm going to go ahead and trust God and have this child.
Because the protocol would have been in Nigeria to
an
end
abortion.
the pregnancy, right?
Yeah, and that's why I love America so much. and when I tell this story, people give it a negative connotation. I'm like, guys, I'm crashing the biggest party in the world, I'm not supposed to be here. So mom, prayer word, she had faith, she had me, and I've been here ever since.
Now you have 3 sisters, right?
3 sisters, yeah.
And they are all in Nigeria. Has it been tough to be so far away from your sisters and your family?
It is. We're quite a close unit, so it's difficult not living with them every day, but we are fortunate enough to be able to travel as much as often. We spend holidays together. They come here, I go there, and we make it work with technology as well, FaceTime. We make it work.
Yeah, we live in the future now, so it helps us out.
Mm-hmm.
When you were in New Jersey, correct, at first?
Yeah, New Jersey.
And what was your care like when you were diagnosed in New Jersey growing up?
Care was decent. As a pediatric, it was awesome. We had support groups. We got together every Thursday and talked about sickle cell. And then as I grew into an adult, it became much more difficult. Everything I had as a pediatric, I lost instantly as soon as I became 21. I always try to build a relationship with the doctor. I feel like it's the best way to get the best care you can. I have one good doctor as an adult, which I haven't been able to replicate that anywhere. So I'm still trying to find a doctor like that in Atlanta. I don't think it's their intention to make it difficult. It's just with the opioid crisis, everything that's going on, the stigma of having sickle cell, everything plays into your care.
When you say the stigma of having sickle cell, can you say more about that?
When you go to the emergency room, the first thing they look at it, they think of is, oh, this kid is just here for drugs, and that can be quite painful, particularly someone with my ego. I hate going to the ER, so when someone's like, I don't even want you to help me, so don't tell me I'm here looking for drugs. So it can get quite frustrating.
How often do you find yourself going to the ER for either pain medication or because you need inpatient treatment?
A lot less now that I'm in Atlanta. In New Jersey, particularly in the winter, it was literally a revolving door, in and out. They know you when you come there. Oh, it's this guy again, And then you start becoming embarrassed, and then you become even more reclusive and start doing stupid things like treating yourself at home with Dilaudid, which doesn't make any sense at all. But sometimes you do what you got to do. I know this is more me being an egomaniac and wanting to take care of myself. I've had many nights where this is dumb. I should be in the hospital right now. But I'll rather stay home and take care of it myself. We have this thing my wife and I call hydration therapy. She gets me like 2 gallons of water and just chug, babe, just chug. And we do stuff like that to, try and balance it out.
Open up those blood vessels.
Yeah,
and get
exactly.
the water moving through the body. Well, it's tricky, right? I mean, we talk about, with kind of the infusing fatigue and how, we're the same age. I'm 31, and I get tired of sticking myself with a needle every other day. It's not the same as going to the emergency room. It's a much more invasive, thing. I accept that. But also sometimes the very simple act of having to stick the needle in the vein again just feels like too much. But we do kind of find those ways to cope with some of those kind of off the page aspects of living with a chronic condition, where there are times where you just grow weary of the thing that you have to do. You have so you are an entrepreneur. I found it interesting that your path there seems directly correlated to the challenges that you were having in school and in social environments. Can you speak a little bit more about how your experience growing up led to you becoming an entrepreneur?
Going out and trying to get a degree and start a life, having sickle cell was just difficult, with the pain and going to college and having to drop out every semester, withdraw. I was wasting the poor guy's money. At one point, I was like, listen, Dad, I think maybe I should stop going to school right now and go directly into the workforce, which was another horrible idea because you are unemployable when you have sickle cell. Luckily, just hanging around with my dad and having all that business acumen, I was able to make it work.
And what are your entrepreneurial activities? Share a little bit about what you do with everybody.
So I'm quite savvy online. So what I do right now, e-commerce, we make all these cool products and then we sell them online and we donate 10% of what we make to sickle cell charities. And then when we were donating the 10%, I didn't see where the money was going. So I wanted to do something that I want to see where my money is going. So we started bringing people in, like Be the Match, to find a match for sickle cell patients in Newark, New Jersey. We hosted galas for creating home testing kits for patients in Haiti so they can test their own genotypes. Just different cool stuff like that.
What else are you doing in online in particular to tell your story and do more to bring awareness and education to sickle cell?
I put a lot of content out. Not just written content, actual images. One thing my wife and I found, we found there's this big adoption community in the U.S. that they go to places like Africa and they adopt kids that have sickle cell. I mean, that's awesome. So, and we try to push out positive images. Hey, look what your son can become one day, So we push out images of positive images, blogging and things like that, content.
And what would you say today in the U.S. is the number one or one of the top concerns or priorities for people with sickle cell right now?
A cure. I think that's I'm on a chemotherapy therapy that was actually made for leukemia patients and apparently can work with sickle cell, but I don't know. I haven't seen anything yet, but I'm listening to my doctor. So, something that actually works that is specifically made for sickle cell, I think is what we're looking for right now.
You had mentioned before that with the lack of awareness and the lack of sufficient clinical treatment, one of the ways that you propose combating that is by having more patients with sickle cell moving into the clinical arena, becoming doctors, becoming nurses. Can you speak a little bit more to that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I thought that was a really smart idea.
Yeah, that was cool. So we met a few sickle cell patients, my wife and I, that we have been encouraging to go into the medical community, become nurses and become doctors yourself. This is quite an elaborate project, but we want to stick with them from the inception of the idea to become nurses or doctors and make them finish through all the way, give them all the assistance they can. Make sure they stay in that path and they eventually come out as a medical doctor and or as a nurse. And that way, people that have sickle cell are the ones that are actually taking care of people with sickle cell.
There's something really cool about when we kind of start moving into those positions for ourselves and for our own community, because at the end of the day, we are our own experts.
Yeah, exactly.
And if we can add that clinical base of knowledge, that's a formidable foe, so to speak. I don't know what a foe to, but a formidable foe. You've mentioned your wife a few times.
Yeah.
You've obviously been dealt a hand that comes with a lot of medical challenges. How did you meet your wife? And if you could just share a little bit about the role she as a partner has played in your journey.
Absolutely. I think I'm here because of my wife. I literally met my wife on my birthday. And I think I say that she's a gift from God. And so we met on my birthday, and at that time we weren't dating, but we eventually started dating. And she's like, listen, man, you might want to take yourself and your life more seriously. And I think it's hard to actually reset my mindset that, listen, you don't have to just give up because they told you you're not going to make it. Why don't you actually try? So she's been a huge influence on my life, positively. I don't even know where I'll be without her. So I'm just grateful for that gift that God gave me.
Well, it sounds like quite a different mindset developed from the one that you articulated to me about living as though you were an athlete, treating your body as though you were an athlete. Mm-hmm. Which sounds like a really smart way to treat your body when you're dealing with a chronic disorder of some kind.
Yeah.
Thank you all for your open and honest responses today and for sharing so openly with everybody. To watch video from any of our previous Powering Through sessions, visit poweringthrough.org, or to learn more about National Cornerstone Healthcare Services, NCHS, visit nchswecare.com.